you sweat more if you're overweight, by the way.
True.
It just happens. Even if you don't think you're fat.
Yeah, I was a
you
chubby
get skinny
kid.
and you stop sweating. It's like, oh my God, I can bear 75, 80 degrees now, and I don't
Absolutely 100% true.
I discovered that right after college. I lost weight, and all of a sudden 75 felt normal to me.
Right.
It was like, I used to feel terrible.
I went through this phase where I was like pretty heavy. I was like, I don't know what my weight was. It was in early 80s, and I just started that newspaper, that publishing company that I had. And it was very active, and it was in the middle of the summer, and I had to wear a suit and tie all the time and everything. And I lost 30 pounds.
Okay.
That summer. I intentionally.
On purpose, yeah.
On purpose. And I lost 30 pounds. I could not believe how I enjoyed the summer.
Yeah.
Like
it's way different.
Way different. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed sweat. Different. When you're heavy and you sweat, your clothes stick to you, and you know that all your little blubber bits are showing through the shirt.
Sure.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, when you sweat and you're skinny, it feels like it's on purpose. It feels like it's actually accomplishing something. Yeah. When you're fat, you feel like everything's wrong. It's like, this isn't supposed to be. But it's because you're fat. You don't realize.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, you were pretty chunky in that yearbook photo.
You think I was chunky there?
Yeah.
The one that I sent you from the reunion?
Yeah, you're chunky there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
clearly. You could clearly, I mean, assuming you're 6 feet tall, you clearly lose 10 pounds there.
Oh, yeah, probably.
At least, yeah.
Probably.
Definitely. You got a little Puerto Rican mustache, too. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to I couldn't grow a mustache.
Were you even allowed to?
No, you weren't allowed to.
So you were trying to get away with something?
We were seniors, so we could get away. I mean, even if you look at my hair was a little longer than it was in earlier years.
Yeah. Your hair is not that different there than here, by the way.
Well, I had a part in the middle then.
Yeah, the only difference is where the part is, really.
Kind of.
Which is funny.
Kind of.
And nobody else has hair. I think you have the most hair out of all the people in that group photo.
Of the 50-year reunion photo? Probably.
Anybody who has something like that when they're young, and that's like their thing, they lose that when they're an adult. It must feel horrible.
Yeah.
It just must feel bad.
I don't know.
Like if I lost my hair, I'd feel bad. My hair, as far as I'm concerned, is like one of my more positive traits.
All of a sudden, you can be in your 40s, it'll start to thin. You could do like, Elon Musk started losing his hair really early.
Yeah, but then he got it transplanted from somewhere else or something.
From his butt, I think.
I don't know. That's what Joe Biden got.
No, what? Hair from his butt?
Yeah, sure.
What? No, what? They transfer fat from your butt. They don't transfer hair from your butt.
From your butt to where?
Women get that. They get hair out of their butts. I mean, wait. They get fat transplanted, cut out of their butts, and they get it put into their face or wherever.
This is not true.
Yeah.
This is not true.
Where else that's where they got all the fat.
Okay. Anyway, they take hair from other places and they put the plugs in, right?
Yeah, they get hair like you can get hair.
They do it differently now.
You can get hair like from the back because a lot of people have male pattern balding, and they get hair from the back of their head and put it to the front.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Alopecia.
I don't know if it's alopecia, but male pattern balding, they call it.
Baldness,
yeah. I'm supposed to be bald, according to my genetics.
Yeah.
Not bald, but I'm supposed to have a lot of hair loss.
Yeah.
And got it, thinning. My hair is changing.
Right.
So, what are you going to do? Getting old.
Anyway, I was reading a study the other day about ChatGPT's effect on your brain. Right. So they're studying what it does to kids in school now who are using it to get schoolwork done.
Right.
And I think it's a preliminary study. It only was about 50 people, 100 people, something like that. But what they found was that kids, they separated groups and they studied it for like 4 months of usage, kids who were using it versus no use at all. And they found that the neural pathways, half the amount of neural connections were active for the kids that were relying on the ChatGPT.
I believe it.
Results to write their essays and write their stuff. And the ones that weren't had double the amount of brain activity.
Wow. That makes sense.
Basically.
Because I know when I'm writing something and I put it into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And it comes back and I look at it, I say, well, that's not kind of how I write. I'm going to have to rewrite this.
Okay.
But there is a great volume of thinking that I don't have to do anymore.
Right. Structural things.
Structural,
like
making this work. Do I put a comma here? Do I not?
Yeah.
Does this get a colon? Does it not?
Yeah. So actually, interestingly enough, what they found, chronic users had a degradation in in brain activity.
Right.
They did find that people that already had a high cognitive baseline, so people who are already thinkers in their own right,
Right.
they actually experienced enhanced cognitive
Why would that
abilities
be?
from chat. Because they were using it critically. They weren't just relying on the results.
Yeah.
They were using it to increase their output.
Sure.
Instead of just become lazy.
Yes, I can understand that.
But overall, over time, it still leads to a decrease. But people who you can use it, but you should use it as a tool. You shouldn't use it as a crutch.
Yeah,
you shouldn't rely on it like every day for everything you do. Right?
Yeah, it's I have to tell you, it's the same thing with using a GPS in your car.
Okay.
I find that, I started putting it on like just to go to Stop and Shop.
Yeah, right.
It's like, why do I have my GPS on? I know how to get there.
Yeah. But you want to know traffic, right?
I want to. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't live in a place where there's a lot of traffic between here and CVS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like a 7-minute drive or something like that.
Yeah. So it's like you really don't depend upon it. But I do depend upon it. Like, I just drove to New York and back. I mean, I had it on the whole time.
Yeah. The ironic part is that I used ChatGPT to synthesize this study into something I could read and get and summarize.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's
so
good.
I actually, because it's like a 100-page study, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
No.
So I look at the abstract, I look at some key sections, but I'm also going to put it in ChatGPT and say basically what are the main results, and then it'll tell me what page the stuff I want is on. So it'll direct me to where the good stuff is.
Right.
So it works as a finder too.
Right.
So I'll use it like that. Which I think is a good thing. But if you're just using it and then copying and pasting the results or like just spitting it back out, they also found that the kids who were doing that, they couldn't remember their own essays. They couldn't actually quote their own work.
That's right. You can't.
They didn't, because they didn't write it.
It's not theirs.
It's not theirs.
No, it's not theirs.
So they couldn't quote it. So it's a problem. But what we have to do, like any new technology that makes things easier, it's like, oh no, it's making things easier. Yeah, it makes things easier, which doesn't mean we should get lazy. It means we should do more work. Right. So what we have to do is we have to redesign how we educate kids, how we learn, how we increase our mental capacity to accommodate. We have to use these two. How should I say this? We need to redesign our education system, how we, in order to incorporate these tools, so we can do twice the amount of work.
It's supposed to enhance us.
Right. It should do twice the amount of work. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. So like I got this email from this guy who, he's been with me for a while. He's a problem. He's got some mental mental health issues and stuff like that. So he sent me this big long letter, in an email. And it was a little bit, it was a little incoherent in places.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God. So I just pasted it into GPT. I said, what is this guy saying? And I get this thing back and I'm like, and I read it and I'm like, okay, I get that. Is he really saying that? It's like, wow. And I'm thinking, oh, is he really saying this? Yeah, I see what his problem is now. Wait a minute, I better check this. And I go back and make a comparison.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it was pretty much on target. Okay, I guess what that means. That's what that means.
Yeah, but you used it to get some main ideas, and then you checked it to make sure it was right.
Right.
So it decreased the amount of time it would take to go through it.
Yeah.
But you didn't get lazy with it.
I didn't get lazy with it, but I was afraid that I would.
Yeah.
And that it would tell me things that were not true about what he was saying.
Yeah.
Because he's schizophrenic.
Okay.
And he's not always speaking as if it's himself. He's always speaking as if sometimes he's speaking through like something else is speaking through him.
Wow.
Which is true. And so I don't know if I could be, maybe he's lying now to ChatGPT, who's now misinterpreting what he's saying, who's telling me something. So I'm not going to trust that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to trust
shouldn't.
it. No,
you shouldn't.
No, that's crazy.
In fact,
it's a lot easier to read though.
Actually, you know what I did for this stuff? Because I like to put long studies through ChatGPT for stuff like this. And like I said, I still read them. I still look at them, but it's great for synthesizing. Cause sometimes the abstracts are no help at all. Sometimes the abstracts go on forever too. The people who do this work, they're not the best writers.
They're terrible.
Always. Okay.
They're terrible writers.
So anyway,
they're too intellectual.
So anyway, I asked, but it has I don't know what you would call it. You could call it maybe confirmation bias, which is a different term, but I think it applies here, where it'll tell you yes to whatever your question is. It wants to tell you yes. We talked about this on one of the last episodes too, to the point where it'll actually lie to you or give you false information or bad advice. So I ask it a question about this study, and it goes, "You're absolutely right. You can find this on page blah, 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 blah." And I didn't look up. I said, "No, I don't think that's true." And it said, "On further thought, you are absolutely right. It isn't true." And then I do it again. "No, I think it is true." "You are absolutely right."
Yeah.
And it literally went back and forth 5 times.
Yeah.
And then I pointed out, I said, "You are telling me yes no matter what."
Right.
I said, "Update your memory."
Right.
"I want you to check and make sure things are true. I do not like it when you just approve of what I say." And I have no idea if that's going to help, but it goes memory updated. I hope that'll make it
Yeah, you can't depend
more
upon. I don't know. It's
accurate.
It's a little frightening.
It is frightening, right?
Yeah, it's totally sycophantic.
Oh, yeah, it loves you.
It loves me. It thinks
loves you.
everything that I say. It started to do things like, I don't know what it was. I asked some question, then I said, "Would you like to know what the solution to this is?"
Yeah.
So I typed in, "Sure."
Okay.
And it gets back, "Non-Contemplative Meditation." And
So it told you your own solution is. Yeah.
And I said, "You know what? It's right.
It's right, but
Consciousness is." Yeah, I know.
crazy.
It's scary. You can't.
I have friends like that.
Like chat?
Just
GPT?
tell me I'm right no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, when you have overly agreeable people,
Right.
it's like, I need you to disagree. Just disagree with me. I want to learn something. I want to gain some knowledge. I want my opinion to change. I don't want you to just agree with everything I say.
Yeah, I don't know when this happened. It was a while back, but I said, it gave me an answer to something. I said, "Is this absolutely true?" And they came back with, "No, not all the time." It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the thing with technology, and people think AI is going to like take us over and stuff. I don't think that's true. Like with any new technology, it's scary.
Yeah.
And we learn how to use it.
Yeah, we have to learn how to use it.
Actually, that reminds me, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
He talks about stuff like this too. He talks about modern technology, things like that. He thinks that nuclear power was created by demons.
He thinks that.
Yes.
Really?
Have you heard that?
No.
Yeah. Here, let me play.
I've heard that. Yeah,
I do have
but
a
not
clip of it.
not from him.
Here, let's listen.
I didn't know he was so spiritual.
Yeah, he's gotten really spiritual over the past couple of years since he was fired from Fox.
February 20th, 2023, I was attacked in my bed by a spiritual being and clawed and left bleeding and scarred. And do I understand what happened? No, of course I don't. I don't really understand anything, but that did happen to me. I don't care if people believe me or not. It did. And I think it was just a momentary glimpse of something that's happening at all times, which is, again, this war between forces that we can't see, not since.
So let's just stop at that first part. Did you hear what he said there?
Yeah.
He said he was attacked in his bed.
In his bed by someone named Claude.
No, that's an AI model.
Is there? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Claude is an
attacked
AI
him.
model. No.
Yeah, he was Claude.
He says he was clawed and scarred by a demon, so he has physical marks.
Right.
What do you think of that?
I don't believe him.
You don't believe him?
No. No.
Do you think he believes himself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he could have. I mean, I believe that absolutely there is such thing as physical attack from the demon world. I don't think that. I think he could have scratched himself or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, in a fit of some kind.
Right.
But I don't think that a demon came and scratched him. You know, like the stuff we saw in The Exorcist, the movie.
Okay.
You know, the flesh being scratched right before your eyes and stuff. I forget exactly what.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was on her stomach, maybe. Some words
Okay.
appeared. I forget the movie. But,
Me too.
But yeah, stuff like that. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So you don't think that something like came into his room and wrestled with him?
Something probably did. But it was a physical manifestation of his. It was his own physical manifestations.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, you're confusing me. So he did have a real experience.
Oh yeah.
But you don't think some sort of metaphysical clause.
No.
That's the part you're disputing.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I dispute that.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
We dropped the atomic bomb in Nagasaki, the second one in August.
I can tell him what
1945,
happened.
and decided that we were gods, and the God himself no longer existed. Since then, we have been a secular society, and that's why we're now being destroyed, in my view. I care about this country and what happened to it after 1945, and it's a very clear demarcation line, and it seems obvious to me that nuclear weapons are demonic. There's no upside to them at all, and that anyone who claims otherwise is either ignorant or doing the bidding of the forces that created nuclear technology in the first place, which are not human forces, obviously. And let me just ask you this, which I've asked a million.
So I'll stop there. So he thinks that nuclear technology was basically created by some sort of dark metaphysical manifestation, I guess.
You know, there's an argument on the other side, too, that says that the development of nuclear technology has saved the world from tactical weapons, from us attacking each other. So, well, we can't,
we don't do it anymore. Right.
Mutually.
Well, the thing is we still do. So what's happened is now we fight in these smaller theaters through basically puppet governments.
I know, but but the mutually assured destruction is preventing us from sending conventional weapons on each other,
Right. Yeah. But his whole
I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying that the argument can also go the other way.
Right, but his whole thing is that in dropping the nuclear bomb on Japan, he said we decided to play God and wipe out people.
Yeah.
The thing is,
I don't think we knew what was going to happen long term on that at the time.
Well, we knew how many people would die, I guess, or about how many, I guess. But more civilians were killed in all of World War II than just that. Like that wasn't like the first time civilians had died in war or anything like that. Millions of civilians have died in between World War I, World War II, and the famines they caused and all that stuff. So I'm not buying that was some sort of spiritual demarcation, the dropping of the bomb that like ended Western society, the way he's saying there. I also think that there's a tendency to do this whenever there's some sort of new revolutionary technology, which nuclear is basically still new relative to all of human history, right? And we're seeing that with AI too. It's like we call it demonic. We say this is going to destroy us. This is going to ruin us.
Yeah.
And why? Because there is tendency to misuse it. There are bad things that can come from it, but when you look at the progress it causes, that exists too, like nuclear power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have anything more efficient than nuclear power in terms of generating electricity, things like powering things. So, and now we don't use it. We've hamstrung ourselves on that one.
Yeah.
So it looks like nuclear is only bad, right? But we should have nuclear power plants that basically take care of our energy problem.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing. I mean, what about fire? Should we not use fire because it burns down houses?
Right.
Fire can be used demonically, 100%. But it also heats our homes.
When they invented the steam engine and rails.
Yeah.
There were people that thought don't get on those trains because they thought that if you went over 15 miles per hour,
if you went too fast,
you would cease to exist or something.
Right. Or like your brain would go to jelly or whatever,
the universe would explode.
They thought. I have heard something like that.
Yeah, weird stuff.
What did they think? They thought something strange like that, right? And of course now we have jets, right? Now we go supersonic.
Sure. Mach 10 or whatever.
And they're doing this. So anyway, what made me think of this is they're doing the same thing with AI now. People are saying AI is demonic. We're not going to use AI.
The internet was demonic.
But like that study, I showed, and there are demonic things about the internet. I mean, we can look anything up we want. We can watch this clip.
And there are demonic things about trains. If you've ever been in a subway system in New York City.
Yeah, that's true. We can make our own show. We have independent media now because of the internet, stuff like that. Yeah. But at the same time, you also have 12-year-olds with a pornography catalog in their pocket now, which is terrible.
Yep.
So you have stuff like that. So you have tremendous progress, and you also have terrible setbacks in other ways. But I think you have to weigh them and see you can't get rid of all the progress because you're afraid of the setbacks. You can't do that.
Right.
So
what is he saying? Does he have a solution? What is this?
No, I don't think he does.
He's just making a statement.
I think it's honestly, there are things I like about Tucker. I think there's a lot of fear mongering too. I think from people, I don't want to say in Tucker's camp because he's his own independent entity right now. But there are lots of people in that sphere that are they're very disillusioned. They have lost faith in the West. They've lost faith in America. And they basically just look back at history and say, this is where we went wrong. This is where we went wrong. And now we're screwed. Right. And that's kind of the thinking. You have people doing that, like the what are they called? They're post-liberals, is what they're called now. Which it sounds good. It's like, yeah, I don't like liberals, but it's referring to classical liberalism, which goes back to Thomas Jefferson and John Locke and John Adams. And it's like, wait, if you look at the actual intellectual argument,
we like classic liberalism.
Yeah, we like classical liberalism. And if you look at the intellectual arguments the post-liberals are making, which sounds good in modern terms, but it's not, because they're applying it in a historical sense. They're saying that America was founded incorrectly. They're saying the ideals America was founded on were actually wrong. The John Adams was wrong. Thomas Jefferson was wrong. There are good things about America. America's great for other reasons other than what the founder said it was.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, whoa, that's not right. And I think once people realize that, once people start hearing that, it becomes evident to people, Americans aren't going to be on board with that. It's going to say, wait a second, no, I like America, actually. I actually like individual liberty. And I don't think Tucker is a post-liberal, by the way. I was just using that as an example.
Right.
Anyway, so he's saying that here, and I think he's a big... I have a feeling he's very unhappy about Trump's decision to bomb Iran.
I think so, probably. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. For that, yeah. If his thinking is like this, of course he's going to think that that's terrible.
Yeah.
But he's not the same. I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't know. Like I said, I think he's very disillusioned. I think he...
Well, first of all, he's no longer working for, media, right? He's his own media now.
Yeah.
He's not working for someone else's brand.
No, he's his own brand.
He's his own brand.
100%.
So he has to brand himself, and he has to promote himself, and he has to become something.
Okay.
Other than just a talking head making a commentary that's happens to be conservative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But sorry, I need to mute this. 1 second. Yeah, but he's going to, but he's going to say what he wants. He's freer now than he was before. Not more restrained, right? More constrained.
Well, sure. No, he's freer now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, his brand is going to reflect his own views.
Right.
So he didn't like that. I know there were a bunch of people within MAGA saying that Trump isn't going to do this, or it'd be a big mistake, and if he does, Trump is... there are all these people all over Twitter saying that Trump has betrayed America by doing this without even seeing the results of the action.
By bombing Iran. Yeah.
One of Trump's biggest positions is that we should have never done what we did in the Middle East originally under Bush, and if we were... we should have gotten in, gotten out, and America should have benefited from it. So if he, of all people, is deciding to do this, he probably has a very good reason for it.
Right.
Which actually leads to another thing I wanted to show you, if you don't mind. Here's an article from the New York Post that I saw the other day. Rogue states Russia and Iran attempting to destroy MAGA movement with disinformation bot army.
I have no idea what that means.
Okay. Well... if you spend any time on X, you'll see all this controversy playing out where people are like, Trump betrayed us, like I said, right?
Right.
And a report looked at all those replies and looked at all the big accounts that sort of push out that kind of thing. And now you shouldn't really always trust these reports. You kind of have to take them with a grain of salt, because it's like, who's funding these independent organizations that do these studies anyway? You can't always trust it. But what they found was... there are huge bot armies that are pushing all this anti-Trump news on right-wing people, saying, "Oh, Trump's betrayed us, and he's a lackey for Israel." All that. It's actually being pushed by bots. There's a huge swarm of bots that follow all these posts and boost them.
Right.
So what you're seeing, this is some stupid thing, not even worth keeping if they're going to show me a random video. So what we're seeing is like posts that are anti-Trump, and then these bots come in, boost them, and then the actual people on the site think that there's a bigger schism than there really is.
Right.
They think that MAGA is at civil war. It's like, no, this is not even real. This is not even real.
I know.
So people who spend their time in the real world and off Twitter probably have a much more unified sense of what's going on right now.
The thing about Tucker, I wanted to mention about Tucker, if it's okay with you to talk about this. The thing about Tucker is I see a very different Tucker Carlson than we used to see.
Oh, yeah.
He's just a different guy.
Sure.
And I had wondered, like, is he under the influence of something? Like, I don't mean like, is he, snorting cocaine or something like that? But like, when I see a shift in someone's thinking in their, just in the way they present themselves.
Yeah, even their personality.
Their personality
almost.
seems to change. Their positions change. It doesn't even have to be 180 degrees, but they start to.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Right.
and I see that. I'm picking up that sense with him. I picked that up with a lot of people.
I picked that up with him too.
But I picked it up with him.
Yeah.
And then I find out that he's got this nicotine company.
Right.
He's
right.
like
Nicotine pouches.
Yeah, nicotine pouches.
Yeah.
And if he's on nicotine, which he seems to be, I think I heard him say that,
he's on a lot of nicotine.
Yeah, nicotine will change your perception on anything and everything.
The thing is,
if you use it chronically,
I mean, he uses it more than, I think he uses it literally from sun up to sundown, basically. And those pouches have way more nicotine than a traditional cigarette.
They do, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get, it's like 3, 6, and 9 milligram pouches.
Right.
So it's normal cigarette. The interesting thing, we had a conversation. We were a little confused last time because I was looking up how much nicotine was in a cigarette in either the last podcast or podcast before. And it's like, oh, I thought there was less in a cigarette. They put an amount in a cigarette, but you only absorb a very small amount of, you only absorb like 20% of what they actually put in.
Right.
Because it's not a very good intake method, right? I mean, you're smoking it. So you only get a small amount. You only get a few milligrams per cigarette. But those pouches are 3, 6, 9, and that's just a pouch that sits in your mouth. You just leave it there.
Yeah.
So you could get, and I know he takes like the 9s, and he uses them all day from what he said.
Yeah, that changes everything. It's considered. Look, I guess you remember we went to. There are a lot of people. I don't know. There are people that you wouldn't think use nicotine or smoked or vaped that we find out that they do.
Yeah,
like him. Like we were at a.
I know what you mean.
We had a Gutfeld taping once, right? Remember?
Yep.
And in between takes, Gutfeld pulls out this vaping.
Right.
And I specifically remember. I said, okay, all right. It kind of turned me off a little bit. It's like, oh, I didn't think that he went the drug route, But there are people who use nicotine nootropically. They want to increase their cognition and their memory and able to respond and things like that. And as, someone who makes a podcast, right? I want to be on top of things.
Sure.
If I was on TV, I would want to be on top of things.
Yes.
And so, so like I'll have a cup of coffee and I know that that's going to affect me a little bit. It's going to, boost me up a little. That's going to change
I intentionally actually had a cup of tea, a big black cup of tea before this podcast because I wanted to make sure I was awake enough and everything.
Well, when I saw that with Gutfeld, I was and then I started thinking, wait a minute, isn't there an old tape even of like showing Hannity, smoking right this way? And at that time I thought, oh, he's smoking. But now I'm thinking back, I'm saying, no, maybe not. Maybe he's
that was a vape with Sean.
That was a vape, right? So he doesn't have he's not smoking cigarettes.
And that was before everybody was doing vapes too, so people were actually laughing.
But you're right. So I specifically remember Gutfeld saying that he felt that vaping was, because they were talking about banning vaping because kids were using it, it was being promoted to kids. This is going back years.
Right.
And he was against it. He was against all that. But he was for vaping because he felt it's saving lives because people are
carcinogens.
All the tar and all the stuff is out of it. And he himself used a vape.
Yeah.
Quit smoking by using a vape. Is escaping a cancerous death now.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. And then he stopped vaping. Well, now I see him vaping.
So he said he stopped?
He said he stopped. He absolutely said he stopped, which means that maybe, so I saw him do it that time. Maybe he, took a shot of nicotine before he went on, before the show went on, to increase his cognition.
Right.
And then in between takes, he takes it. And maybe that's what Sean Hannity was doing.
The thing is, but there's a difference between somebody who's using it all day.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Tucker uses it all day.
I'd rather somebody smoke a couple cigarettes because and I know that sounds crazy.
That sounds ridiculous.
That sounds crazy. I don't mean for the carcinogens. Okay, those are obviously bad. I mean for the nicotine, the amount you're getting from the pouches, from the vapes. It's so high that it can't help but alter how. Does nicotine not release serotonin? What it
does is it stimulates these acetylcholine receptors.
Okay,
which has to do with producing dopamine, norepinephrine, all of the neurotransmitters that it also enhances your mood, by the way.
Well, if it's releasing, if it's making your body release serotonin,
right,
which I believe it is. Am I right in that?
Yes, it is.
So if it's doing that and
dopamine.
So if you get a little bit of that because you're having like 1 or 2 cigarettes, okay, you're having. But if you're literally just spending all day on nicotine,
right,
like just trying to punch out as much as many chemicals in your brain as you can.
Right.
You're altering your personality. You're altering how you think. You're altering your mood. That's not good.
No.
You're not the same person you were without
No, because
that.
you're using it chronically and you're becoming dependent upon it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with antidepressants. It's also, it is a psychotropic.
Yeah.
Becomes psychotropic at that point.
Yeah.
It's not just, there's a difference between nootropic and psychotropic. One affects, psychotropic chemicals affect mood.
Right.
And the nootropics that people like to take, is it nootropics or nootropics?
Tropic.
The nootropics affect cognition.
Yeah.
Your ability to respond and
Sure.
all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
So if you're using it like that as a one-shot deal so that I'm performing well on a TV show or on a podcast like this, right?
Right.
That is one thing, and you can argue for or against it, but you really can't argue for chronic use of any drug like that.
No. I saw a video on, I think it was a TikTok video the other day. And it was a guy, it was actually a woman filming her husband, and they're on vacation, and they have like a daughter, like a 4-5-year-old daughter or something. And it was a video all day sliced into like a 30-second clip of like beer count or drink count for my husband. How much does my husband drink when we're on vacation?
Right.
It was supposed to be funny. And it's like he starts off, he has a beer, now he's having a cocktail, another cocktail. It went up to, by the end of the video, he was on his, I think, 20th drink.
Okay.
20
drinks.
20 drinks in one day.
Okay.
And people are like, oh, it's watered down. He's on vacation. But most of the comments were like, no, this guy has a problem.
Yeah.
This guy is, and he's like holding his daughter and they're going to events and stuff. And I get that he's doing it in order to, he's not getting fully inebriated. He's making sure he's still functional and all that. But he's numbing himself the entire day.
You get numb.
The entire day.
Well, that's what happens with nicotine too. You do get numb. This is what they call any antidepressant.
But people are like, even people in the comments were like, no, this guy has a problem. Clearly.
Well, he's probably an alcoholic.
Clearly he has an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even he's managing it. He wasn't awful to deal with all day. He wasn't slobbering around and stuff. But no, he's obviously abusing alcohol around his children too.
It's not so much, I'm not talking about the physical addiction, building tolerance and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But also you get what they call, with antidepressants, you get what they call blunting, emotional blunting.
Right.
So you don't get emotional. Well, you do get emotional, but they flatten. So you're not getting carried away with the emotion, but you're still being upset.
Yeah.
Okay. So what that does is you become narcissistic and you become self-absorbed and you become not only addicted to, let's say, nicotine.
You're not learning how to forgive. You're not facing the consequence of not forgiving.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Because you're continuing
Most people
on.
don't. Most people don't conquer that. Most people don't conquer resentment. So instead of conquering it, you get rid of the emotions, you get rid of the bad feelings about it, and then you just keep going on. You're not dealing with life. You're not becoming better. You're stunting your growth that way. And also, you know what they found out? They found out that is it chronic nicotine users, or would it be a chronic smoker? I guess they're both the same. But we talked one time about the hippocampus. The hippocampus actually shrinks in nicotine addicts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're okay. So they would actually have some memory loss or some memory processing
long term.
problems.
Yeah, long term. So there's the short term effect is fantastic.
Right.
But chronically, you start losing who you are. And you stop improving, so you don't become the person that you would become if you were living life and overcoming obstacles and the cruelties and the injustices of the world.
Right.
And you don't
grow.
You flatten. So
it'd be like living your life in a wheelchair instead of if you were an able-bodied person, you would atrophy.
Correct.
You can't do it. You got to walk.
You got to walk.
You got to run.
You got to grow.
Yep.
You got to get strong, and you get strong emotionally, because everybody experiences emotions. The idea is not to get caught up with them.
Yeah.
Right? So we have a brain. We're supposed to use it. We're supposed to have thoughts. There are people that say that, I've heard people say, all thoughts are evil. You've heard that.
Okay.
Right? All thoughts are evil. No, all thoughts are not evil.
Yep.
We have a brain. We have understanding. We have inspiration. And let's say, we have what we know.
Creative power, maybe.
Right. We have what we know in our heart. Creative power. Intuition expresses it in creativity.
Okay.
And we need to be able to express that somehow. So we run it through this wonderful processor called the brain, and that's how we're able to communicate it.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to know what I know unless I tell you.
Right.
Right. And then you can translate that back into your heart and weigh that and see if that's true or false.
Yes.
not in a deciding sense where you're being judgmental, but you can recognize the true from the false that way. Yeah. So I'm trying to blame Tucker for this, but could very well be getting involved in something like that where he's not growing. And that's why he's changing. His personality is changing.
He is not going to be handling situations correctly if he's on that much nicotine all the time. That's too much.
No, his life's going to fall apart.
Like I said, if he were somebody who smoked a few cigarettes a day, it's bad for you physically,
right?
But he wouldn't be ingesting that much nicotine. It would not be changing his brain chemistry the way he is right now.
Right.
And
I just helped the guy get off his cigarettes. He's been a lifelong smoker, and I helped him get off his cigarettes. And he went through the whole thing that I go through with this.
But let me just point out, but that's the thing is we've been taught, because this was the big government push, and that's why all the labels are, I mean, you'll see labels outside of gas stations that sell this stuff to say nicotine is, or cigarettes are harmful or carcinogen. It was, why shouldn't you smoke? Because of lung cancer. That's what it is.
That's what it was. Yeah.
That was the big push by the government.
Right.
And so you have all these people that have switched to nicotine pouches and vapes, and now they're consuming way more drugs than they were 20 years ago.
Correct.
And they're going, oh, look, I'm not going to get lung cancer.
No, but they're becoming worse.
And I saw, I'm sorry, we can go back to your story in 1 second. I actually saw somebody the other day say, I got no evidence for this, just making a prediction. 10 years from now, we're going to look at these nicotine pouches and be like, here are all the physical things that go wrong when you use them.
Could be.
Because that's what happened. There is no drug that you get away with scot-free.
Right.
It just doesn't exist.
Well, you're not going to get away scot-free with that, because what's going to happen is you are going to become a prey to your own emotions, and your emotions are going to make you sick.
Yeah.
Because they're carrying, there's a whole physiology that's connected to that. We won't go into that now.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. You go back to your story. You were talking about helping somebody quit.
Yeah, and that guy, okay, well, it's not monumental, but that guy, I helped him.
For him, it is?
It is. But that guy feels a difference in his life. His whole life changed. That guy smoked, and I didn't know it at the time, but we went through the whole thing, and nope, I'm not going to explain the whole program, but we went through it, and he stopped smoking, and it was fine. And then I found out later, and then he was telling me all the benefits. Oh, my wife says I'm so much nicer, and I'm doing this, I'm handling my finances better, and just life is so much better. I'm making better financial decisions and decisions about his kids. His kids are fully grown, but he's making he's not raising kids, but he's making decisions about, other issues that he had with his kids. And everybody is saying, wow, you're becoming this wonderful person. What happened? That's why I stopped smoking. And then I found out he was smoking like 2 cigarettes a day. That's it. And
you mean originally?
Yeah. He quit from smoke. So it was easy for him to go, he did cold turkey. Everybody quits cold turkey. They say patches and all that stuff. You're really going cold turkey because you're just tapering off, and then you're just jumping off from a lower dose.
Okay.
He didn't taper. He just went cold turkey pretty easily, and then I found out he was only going, Yeah,
that's not a lot.
Yeah, because when he told me we always go how many cigarettes he smoked. He was going like, he always smoked like a pack a day, but he was down to like two or three cigarettes a day. He didn't tell me that he was down to that little bit. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, good for him.
He was the last guy, but he just sticks in my head because his change was not that, I'm coughing less. And I don't get winded, and I can exercise better, and all this other stuff. It's like, no, I'm treating people differently.
I'm a better person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People like me better.
Yeah.
My wife is happy.
Yeah.
Because he never smoked in the house. He would always smoke outside, so the house didn't smell. His wife didn't care. Yeah,
sure.
Sure. Yeah. So it's weird.
I
wanted to mention, you had mentioned about creativity.
Yeah.
And I was, and you were talking about the New York Post article that you read. I read something in the New York Post pretty recently. I can't remember his name. Who's the name of the guy? I can't remember I don't watch these shows, but it was Everybody Loves Raymond.
Okay.
What's that guy's name? What's that? The comedian? Ray Romano.
Ray Romano.
Ray Romano, but who's pretty funny, by the way. And the other guy that's in it.
You mean his brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a comedian too.
Okay.
What's his name?
I don't know. The guy with the deep voice.
Brad Garrett. Yeah.
I know
Brad Garrett, something like that. Okay. Well, anyway, he was at some premiere or something like that, and they were asking him about Everybody Loves Raymond reboot. Okay. Because reboots are very big. Oh, I know. We'll get into it.
I hate reboots.
But he said, no, you can't do it. We're not going to do it. We can't do it. And they said, why? Because Peter Boyle, who plays the father.
Oh, yeah.
And the mother, they're both passed away.
Yeah.
And you can't have that show without them. So they'll never do it. So they'll never be that. So, and I thought, good, because nobody wants to see.
Of course, yeah.
Why?
I mean, why do it? Why do it at all? You would be doing it for the money. You'd be doing it for the name recognition, so you can make a few bucks.
Well, that's usually what it comes down to.
That's all it is.
Yeah, and these reboots are so prevalent that they've got movies too. The movie remakes.
Oh, they're so bad too.
And
why do it?
Well, I have I guess you call it a theory, but I think that Hollywood has lost its ability to be creative.
Oh, I think so too. Obviously.
And what it comes down to is, if you look at like George Carlin, one of the world's best comedians ever, right?
Yes. A lot of haters online right now. By
George Carlin?
Yeah.
Why?
A lot of people are hating George Carlin. Because, again, it's these disillusioned, angry people who are basically like, if he were alive today, he'd be a total leftist. So I hate George Carlin. I'm like, he's not alive today. So why are you complaining
what are you worried about
him?
Yeah.
So stupid. Anyway, yes.
Yeah. I'm using him as an example because he gets up on stage and he just goes like that, right?
Yeah. He's got everything down.
Yeah, it's all, it's like, well, where did that come from? Did he just make that up on the stage? No, hell no.
Of course not.
He's a writer.
Yep.
All of this stuff in Hollywood, these TV shows, the scripting and everything else, it all comes down, it all starts with writing. Somebody wrote something.
And practiced it.
Then practiced it a lot, and then got in front of a camera and performed it.
And that's what I love when I see somebody who is really good at something.
Yeah.
I appreciate the amount of effort that went into it.
Right.
It's not some sort of just, look how talented they are. Oh, everybody thinks they're funny. I'm like, no, like they really worked hard.
They worked very hard for the delivery. Yeah.
Have you seen, I've talked to you about Kill Tony before.
Yeah.
Which
I've seen some of that. Yeah, sure.
I love some parts of it. Other parts I just can't watch because it's just too raunchy and too gross.
Now, I'm guessing, can you tell that the ones that are really good are the ones that really are practiced?
Yep.
Yeah, and the ones that aren't, the ones that suck.
You know who else can tell?
Who?
Tony,
yeah,
the host of the show.
And he probably respects it and gives them.
He gets mad.
Yeah,
when people,
you're not prepared,
and he's like people come up like okay, like you did your minute, it was awful, and he tells them that was terrible. How long have you been signing up for? Oh, I've been signing up for 6 months. I've been waiting for this. It's like, and how many open mics have you done in that 6 months? Right. They're like, I tried it at first, but I decided it wasn't for me. And he's like, you could have been practicing this whole time for this big moment, and you chose to debut your new unrehearsed material on this show instead of working, instead of doing some work to make it good. And it just annoys him. He doesn't like it, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is, it comes down to the creativity.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that writers traditionally...
Those are two elements, by the way, the hard work and the creativity. And they go together. You can't have one without the other, really. Well,
there are plenty of writers that just write. That's all they do. And
I know, but there's hard work that goes into learning how to write.
That's
so if you don't have the medium to express your creativity, just some fart in your head that you think is a good idea, it can never come out. It can never become anything.
Right. So what happens is writers in particular are known to be have, for lack of a better way of saying it, have some mental issues.
A lot of them.
A lot of writers are. A lot of them have been traditionally, some of the best writers have been depressed, bipolar.
Yep.
And I think that with the advent of all of these medications that are coming out today, I think that a lot of people who normally would be creative and be writing, who should be going in and out of depressions,
who should be suffering from maladies.
They should be. Well, that's the thing. You have to suffer. That's what we talked about. You have to be. You have to.
Should be, but yes, would be suffering.
Suffering is. Listen, you become creative by suffering. Because take a look at look at Star Wars. How about the hero's journey, right?
Okay.
That is someone who is thrown into a situation. There's a lot of suffering, and they overcome the injustice or whatever it is.
Okay.
Well, if you are drugging away your ability to deal with life, to deal with your own suffering, how are you going to write about it?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the answer ever is. So you lose your creativity in that area.
Okay.
Even songs. It's like, I lost the girl, I got the girl.
Yeah. So basically, people on people who chronically on antidepressants, on
Right.
heavy amounts of antidepressants, are not learning life lessons
No.
to become germs of ideas that turn into pieces of creative
So
work.
how are they going to tell
right?
us about it if they've never experienced it? They can't.
Yes.
They can't.
Right. Their experience are totally different. And that's true on a cultural level too. The culture that has sort of bloomed in LA or in Hollywood, I see this stuff, or even in New York, like Saturday Night Live, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I watch the skits, I see the movies, I see the things they make. I'm like, I can't relate to any of this.
Can't relate.
It's just I don't relate. Like it could be a scene with like three guys sitting at a dinner table.
Yeah.
It's some dinner party with their wives or their girlfriends, and the way the men are talking
Right.
at that dinner table on this fake sketch, I can't relate to. It's just like, no, it's too effeminate. The jokes they're making are they don't land with me. They're just, I can't relate to anybody in the
There's
scene.
nothing creative there at all. There's no real life experience. There's
That's
just
true, too.
how they think that how people should behave in their opinion.
Yeah,
It's not real.
It's how people behave in their bubble, and it doesn't reflect how people think or behave in real life.
Even music. Look at. Okay, what would happen if take a look historically?
Yeah.
All of the great blues musicians.
Okay.
What if they took drugs and weren't blue anymore?
Okay.
We wouldn't have
Yeah.
blues. We wouldn't have rock and roll.
Yeah.
There'd be no music.
Yeah.
Look at recently. Brian Wilson died. Right.
Yeah.
That was a distressed man.
Right.
Look at all the great stuff he did. Yeah, I mean, it's more than just the
Now, a lot of these people.
surf music. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creativity, that goes into a lot of the production of that stuff.
Now, a lot of these people did use alcohol, were addicted to nicotine.
Right.
They abused substances.
Yeah.
No doubt. Right.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to that?
Well, because they found solutions, and then they would lay off them, and these are people that struggled with them all of their lives.
Yeah.
you know?
They were not taking a prescribed drug that allowed them to function.
Right.
Or seemingly function, leading seemingly normal lives while suffering from this.
Right.
I should say, avoiding the pain while leading normal lives. They didn't have that back then.
No. So a lot of people that say, like psychedelics produced the psychedelic music and all that stuff, but that stuff was wild,
Yeah.
like their brains were.
Yeah.
But that's not the great. That's not the great
Yeah, a lot
stuff.
of that stuff sucks.
Yeah, a lot of it's crazy.
A lot of it
a lot of
it is.
but a lot of it isn't. And a lot of it can be argued. But the thing is that a lot of these people that go, I'm talking about the creativity of people who write songs and music and everything else. They have no creativity anymore.
A lot of them
they've
don't.
lost it. Mm-hmm. They've lost it. Yeah.
So anyway, I think that might be it for today.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, kind of. I would like to touch the subject again about the whole creativity thing, because I think it also goes to art.
Yeah.
And it goes to, because a lot of people, like you would say, oh, well, you're a spiritual guy. Well, why would you be for art? And why would you be for music? Music is distracting, and art is, too. Yeah, it can be. You can abuse anything. But also art, music, creating movies is a form of communication.
Sure.
And you can actually, we have brains. We're supposed to use them. There are people who think that, using your brain, the intellect can be used for some pretty horrific things.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're using it, you could allow God to use it a little bit better than you would ever use it. And then the expression becomes beneficial to all mankind,
Okay.
Yeah. So I would like to talk about that more in the future.
All right.
We're running out of time right now, but I have a lot of thoughts on that. A lot of observations.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're done.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.